Hello everybody, it's Mary Satoli with the Follow Your Bliss Foundation. I have a lot of interesting things that have surfaced this week that I want to share with you. We're going to talk a little bit about the speed bumps of benzo recovery and withdrawal and how to cope a little bit better with that. I've had an interesting week on a lot of levels in that I had a bit of a setback. So it's taken me until today to sort of inch my way back into things. I had to take a little bit of a break. All of the stress from these medical records has been crazy. There has to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills. I think I probably saw every hormone specialist and OBGYN in the city of Phoenix. And there's just a lot of stuff coming up that I think that a lot of women, particularly midlife women, would really be interested in hearing about my case, because I had no idea about this until I contacted a woman who is with the Legal Action Group on Facebook, and we did some chatting last night, and I had a lot of more ahas than I've been having. It's been like, oh my God. So, as many of you know who follow my channel, you will know that I am having my case looked at right now by an attorney, and it turns out it's the same attorney as this woman had, and she won her case. They settled out of court for about $200,000. She said that she was too sick to take it all the way. She felt also that the jury would all be on benzos, which they're probably all on at least an antidepressant, my guess is. And so I hadn't thought about that issue, but given the drug situation, and I know how many people out there are in denial about these drugs. I know a lot of other people that are, because it's sort of like we have to justify our taking the pill when we're not ready to really come off of it because of the horror stories that we hear. So not their fault, not my fault, it's the drug's fault. It says a lot of things. So apparently her case was based on the fact that they have discovered a lot of information to link benzos with a lot of female problems. Heavy bleeding, fibroids. Apparently it has something to do with, the way I read it, is some malfunction in the pituitary ovary axis of some sort that kind of causes things to malfunction. And in my case, oh my God, they did. I mean, I was one of these women who never had a bad time with periods. I had cramps and sore breasts and headaches and stuff. Who doesn't? But I just barreled through all of it. I would bleed heavy for, not even heavy, moderate bleeding for a couple days, and then 3 days of spotting, and boom, I'm done for 30 days. I was like clockwork. I was one of these women that was really fortunate, because I had a lot of friends who had trouble with their periods, and I just thought, how's that even possible? Because I was just lucky. I had no problems until I started the benzos, and I never made the connection. But within about a year or two, I think I mentioned I'd had a bunch of infections, but then I started getting all kinds of heavy bleeding. I developed these fibroids, which initially wasn't a huge fibroid, but it was enough that it was causing the bleeding episodes that I had to be fairly heavy, especially when I got closer to menopause. It got really bad. I had made a couple of hospital visits to have the bleeding stop, because I would bleed for a month and it was just gushing and then it would stop, and so it was pretty bad. And I went to the hospital a couple times for that, and as well as just kind of toughing it out a lot of months, because it was brutal. A lot of heavy bleeding. And then I had also been running to, as I mentioned at the beginning, hormone doctor to hormone doctor, getting hormone replacement, when I don't know that some of it would have been as necessary had it been not for the benzo withdrawal. There seems to be some question in my mind how much was caused by the pellets I had inserted, and how much was actually exacerbated by the benzos, because I had been in withdrawal, trying to come off the drugs several times, and it was so horrific. The anxiety was so bad that I didn't know I was having, I just assumed that I had this anxiety problem. That's why I got on it, and that it was just getting worse because I wasn't taking the meds, which is what a lot of people assume. And I still have this disbelief, I guess, to a certain extent, over as the weeks go by and I uncover more and more information, how much I could have not put this together, but you just can't. Your brain is incapable of sound judgment while you're on these drugs. I had several head injuries and concussions along the way. I don't know how much permanent issues I've got from that. It's hard to separate because I had so much stuff happen in such a short period of time that it is hard to separate how much is normal menopause stuff, how much is normal damage from concussions and fractures to my skull, and how much is actually the benzo stuff still trying to heal itself. Because I had a night, Sunday night, where I was up all night and my stomach exploded into a basketball. Literally, I could not breathe. I was so uncomfortable, and a lot of it is because they're trying to regulate my thyroid medication, and so if I get it even a little too high, it's really complicated to try to level out. But doing good today. This morning I stopped before I ate lunch. I have a huge salad waiting in my refrigerator. I'm always talking about food. And I had already run to the grocery store, went to swim laps this morning, and went to the pharmacy and picked up my estrogen, and then came back and stopped at the post office on the way back. So now I'm on to the video. So I'm amazed some days as I'm driving along how much I can actually do on a good day now, and it's that's why I wanted to kind of share this concept of getting over the speed bumps with everybody. But I wanted to go into a little bit more information, because I think this might be helpful in the cases of a lot of women who have gone through the hormone stuff because of these benzos, like me, that may have a case. And if I had known about this sooner, I wouldn't be dealing with all the statute of limitations BS. But they're thinking they can get around this with my mental health stuff that was given by disability and by one of the clinics here in Arizona. So we're looking at all that, and it's just complicated. So there was a lot of trauma looking at some of these records where, they were hospital records when I was bleeding to death from the supposed pellet withdrawal, but it was because the fibroid increased in size. And I don't know how much of that was related to the benzos, because like I said, now that I'm finding this stuff out, there apparently was information taken to Summit. I'm assuming this is in Massachusetts because that's where she's from, that was related to how many women had actually, that were on benzos, had actually, I'm stumbling over my words. It's probably because I'm hungry. I should have eaten first. Bad Mary. Okay, so but there was a number of them that had gone to the summit that were having serious menopause related, and some of them weren't menopause age. Some of these women were young. They were in their 30s and 40s and still having issues. And I didn't have any of that until I had hit that over 40 hump. So there seems to be twice the incident for hormone-related issues amongst the group of women who were on benzos versus the ones who weren't. The incident of hormone-related issues was much lower. So I guess they've proven all this, because she won her case based on the fact that she had to have a hysterectomy because of a bunch of stuff that happened to her. And I know that after I had the withdrawal bleed from the pellets and the fibroid that had doubled in size, I had also had a blood transfusion by that point, but they had me scheduled for a hysterectomy, and I skirted it by 3 days. I literally had gone, I was so weak I didn't think I was going to survive a surgery. There was no way I thought I would be able to survive it. So I had gone to another OBGYN that I got another opinion from, and I was not a candidate for ablation or any of this kind of stuff because the fibroid, the way it was placed or where it was at in my uterus, was just not feasible. And I had all these other weird anomalies in my uterus that I could not ever figure out how it was possible, the way that I ate and exercised and did everything right, that I even had anything remotely as strange as what they were coming up with. So there's a lot of question as to the way that I reacted to supplements and homeopathic remedies, and all this is in my records that I had forgotten about a long time ago, because you kind of block that trauma out to some degree when you have really bad PTSD like I did after this dust settled with all this. And one of the doctors who had given me some of these homeopathics or alternative stuff, they could not figure out, because it was just such an off-the-wall reaction. I was so sensitive to stuff, and I had no idea about the tolerance withdrawal issues at that point. And so as I look back at it, I had a lot of probably benzo flu infections and things that I didn't put together. I didn't make any connection. When I found out about this business with women's hysterectomies and bleeding issues last night, I was just like, whoa, you know, these drugs are worse than I ever even imagined they were. So you women out there, any age really, if you are on these drugs and tapering off of them and having horrendous issues from bleeding, hysterectomies or whatever, get a hold of me so that I can help you trace back some of this stuff, either through our website. My email address is on the website at the followyourblissfoundation.org, and you can call me or leave a comment, because I'm really curious as to how many of you out there are listening that did not know that the benzos affected women's hormones and bleeding regulation and that sort of stuff. I had no idea. So this is another layer of information this week. It was pretty radical, because that bleeding episode, I was in the hospital for 2 days. My blood pressure tanked to 47/20 something. I was on my way out. I had lost so much blood in less than a 24-hour period. And there didn't seem to be, outside of the pellets and the fibroid, that's what they linked it to. They didn't link it to the fact that my brain chemicals were probably not functioning right, and it caused me to lose I think an abnormal amount of blood, because it was fast and furious. It started that quick, and it was like someone had turned a faucet on. I had to have the paramedics come, and they put a gauze blanket between my legs that was this big around, and I'm 5 minutes from the ER where I was living at the time, and I bled through that gauze blanket completely by the time I got to the ER. And to make matters worse, if it's possible at all, but every time I think it can't be, it is. The medical assistant who jotted down, because I'd been through this before, so I told him I needed Premarin and IV right away, because I knew how to stop the bleeding. I'd been through this before. They give you estrogen. It tricks your body into thinking that you are pregnant or something like that, and it stops the brain. I don't know how it works exactly, but it works, and it worked several times for me, so I knew. And he jotted it down. Well, apparently the nurse that got the order read it wrong and thought it was not Premarin. Prim is what I needed. Phenocrin. How they mixed that up, I don't know. The handwriting must be bad. So she came in with Phenocrin, and I'm like, I don't need Phenocrin. I need something for the pain, because the cramps were like brutal. I thought I was gonna die. And I'm laying on the table, you know, going through 2 thick super pads every half hour. I was bleeding all over the toilet seat in the bathroom, and they were so freaking busy that I couldn't get anybody to help me. So I told the nurse, I said, I'm not nauseous, because I'd had that stuff when I had my head injury, because they gave that to me for the nausea. So I knew what it was, and I said, I don't need that stuff. Give me something for the pain. She says, well, we can't do that because it'll thin your blood out. And I'm like, oh, man. So she leaves, fast forward an hour, and I've already been in the ER for probably 3 hours by this time. Still no Premarin, no estrogen. And the doctor comes back in and said, well, we can't do much for you if you're declining the Premarin. And I said, I never declined the Premarin. She brought in Phenagrin. Well, the doctor said literally, oh shit. That came out of her mouth. She knew they messed up. They were in there with a drip of IV estrogen within less than 5 minutes. I mean, they knew that I had serious issues. So they kept me for observation, and that was when I tanked. My blood pressure tanked. I had been in there for less than 24 hours, and I remember the whole, what do you call it, crash unit or whatever. There was probably 10 nurses or something that come barreling in there. I had no idea. I was so out of it, I did not know what was going on. And so he starts pumping fluids into my IV, and all of a sudden I started coming around, and they're all clapping. And I'm like, why are they clapping? I didn't know. And he says, because your color's coming back, you're not blue anymore. And I'm like, what? I was blue. So it was pretty freaky. I mean, I had some pretty radical things happen as a result of these drugs, and it put me through a lot this week. It did. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to withstand getting to at least the point of whether they take the case or not. Just getting through these medical records is going to be an undertaking, because every time I order more records, then I remember another doctor that I went to see. I mean, seriously, that is how many doctors were involved. I saw between the ER visits and the doctors, it was probably close to 100 different doctors and medical facilities, and bills that are stacking up on my desk like this right now, and those aren't the ones that have been emailed to the attorney already. So, ladies, I'm here to tell you that we, particularly menopause-related women, were sold a really bad shtick when all they wanted to do was put us on these drugs and antidepressants and benzos when we went into menopause. And even those of you who are younger, it's still possible that this could be causing your problems, and I had no idea. So I wanted to share that because I'm hoping it'll help a lot of you sort through this. And please comment, call, again, email me, because this is like a big deal. This is a huge problem, and they're not paying attention to it, so we need to make some noise about this. Okay, second thing I want to bring up is that we are going to shortly, because I want to take a poll. I know there's a lot of you out there that are still in the taper process that can't afford compounding to get your doses down small enough. Cutting those tablets is a bitch. I know I tried. I couldn't do it because I was on such a huge dose. And I did the liquid taper. So they come in usually little bottles like this with a syringe. And we will have these empty bottles, and they'll have plungers and syringes where you can draw them out. It's going to be like a whole kit with a mortar and pestle and a couple bottles, so you can, make your own taper. And we can teach you how to do this. Our pharmacist has all the computations, so it'll save you some money. These bottles aren't that much. We're still investigating the price of the mortar and pestle, so grind your pills up with. And then you put them in, to the liquid, depending on, and it'll last you. Like I do a mix of this, and the lower that you get down, the less of it you're going to need. So initially you use more liquid, but I was, right now I'm coming off the phenibut, so I am, I'm going through less and less and having to mix it like maybe every 6 weeks to 2 months now. So. Because I've cut a long taper ahead of me with this. Not that I'm on a lot, but I was just so burnt out after the Benzos and the Lunesta that I literally was just exhausted physically, mentally. I could not take one more horrendous withdrawal. It was just sort of like on my back for a month last October from the Lunesta, and just, uncle, I can't do this anymore. So anyway, please let me know if you're interested in any of the bottles. Again, some of you PM me on Facebook, so we chat, and you can get these. We're going to try to make it very affordable for you to buy those if you're interested. And it'll probably have some kind of taper calendar that I'm going to probably create myself, because I have talked to a lot of you who, and I think I might mention this in my taper video, which was earlier on this year. A lot of people have challenges with remembering if they took their doses. And so what I typically do is I will write on my planner. I don't have a smartphone, still behind the times, guys, what can I say? I have a calendar planner that I would write, say if I was tapering off diazepam and I was at 30 milligrams, I would put 10 milligrams, 10 milligrams, 10 milligrams at my designated time on my calendar. Then when I would take the dose for that day, I'd circle it as a double check method, because there were times that I panicked thinking, did I take that or didn't I? And then I didn't know whether to take it. Your brain is really, your memory is just not good on this stuff. So let me know if there's anything else you want us to include in the kit too, because there are some things that people have done with this that are really creative that help them. And so please share that with me, and I'll make the kit custom for you guys. So I've done it. The liquid is the best way to go. It stays stable in the olive oil, and all you need is the bottles and some olive oil in your prescription, and you're set, and just grind them up. So that is another announcement I wanted to go over before I went into the whole Benzo challenge thing here, as far as those speed bumps, because you'll have windows and waves. And even at this point where I'm doing pretty good, the stress still impacts me. It does even your average person, but particularly still when your nervous system is still recovering, because that whole system gets ramped up from the stress. And boy, I had a couple rough nights this week, but last night, thank God, the estrogen kicked in. I slept 7 hours, so I woke up and I had been out cold, and I'm like, it can't be this time already. It was like 6:30 or something when I woke up, and I don't even remember going to bed. So those are nice nights, and bonus nights where I get more than 6 hours. That's a good day the next day. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how I manage those speed bumps. And for many of us, most people have speed bumps. We have entire mountains to climb. You have to like get your brain from all this negative feedback loop that you get in from the fear and the fear of death and the anger and the rage that goes along with coming off these things. And you have to get over that mountain and get yourself in a positive frame of mind. And it was rough for me initially until I started listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks, and how you just need to kind of get into a neutral place, and how I would do that, and how I still do it. Because I mean, this last few days I had to several times just stop and lay down and do deep breathing. And I mean more than just a few minutes. I mean sit there for 10, 20 minutes, whatever it takes, and just do breathing. Just breathe and breathe and breathe. And so that, and I have a couple of yoga postures that I like. One is flat on my back, cradling myself with my legs in a fetal position and just rocking myself. That's actually called rock the baby. There's some other forms of yoga that are kind of modified. I just don't do the whole grab the feet thing. I just curl up in a ball, because it's easy to get there quickly, and it's easy to get myself down quickly now when I have moments of anxiety or fear. Not so much the fear anymore, just feeling overwhelmed. That's where I get now. I don't have all those other things anymore, thank God. But I do get overwhelmed, and those things help. And I know that you're not going to ever feel 100% better, no matter what level of what's the word I'm looking for here, problem you're facing that day. It's a gradual stepping toward a better feeling, just getting your thought from like a totally negative thing to finding, and that's where I got into gratitude work. Gratitude work is big because it quickly moves you from a place of anger to a place of gratitude, which is is very powerful, because no matter where you're at and no matter how bad things get with withdrawal or any situation in life, there is usually always something that we have to be grateful for. And for me, mostly it was this little guest house. Every time I would get into a bad place this last year or better, I would, and sometimes even prior to that I could still do it, but better at it now, because once I walk toward, okay, I'm grateful for my guest house, my friends, the financial support they've given me, all these wonderful things that I have in my life, and for the advice that I got. Thank God I wasn't one of these people that found out, that tried to cold turkey. I did try to taper too fast and had a rough time on a number of times, and I couldn't get off of it. But then finding out the difficulties with a cold turkey that could be rectified by going slower. So I was very fortunate that I had that guidance. So if you can just simply get yourself into one thing you have to be grateful for, then you can move to another and another. And sometimes I would just sit and I would do nothing but for 30 minutes come up with everything I could find, that I had food, I had shelter, I had water to drink in a desert, which is, I'm telling you, I turned my fan off so I wouldn't have noise today, and I am on the verge of breaking out into a massive sweat. We've been at about 100 degrees all week, and it's supposed to be a little cooler today, 90, so I don't have my air on yet, but it's about to kick in, I'm sure, because it's getting up to, I like it toasty, so it can be 87, 88 before I start breaking a sweat. So just things, like the air conditioning, that's another thing to be grateful for. The air conditioning, if you have a roof over your head during benzo withdrawal, that is something in itself to be grateful for. If you have a friend that supports you, or a husband, or a significant other of any kind, that is something to be grateful for, because I was alone, totally alone, other than a few friends who sent me money, and they weren't there physically very much. They picked me up from the hospital visits when I had head injuries and blackouts and stuff. They were there, they picked me up, and my best friend was at my hospital bedside when I almost bled to death and took me to get my blood transfusion. So these are all people in my life that I'm extremely, extremely grateful that I have. And you'd be surprised how quick it can take you from a really negative place of being to a state of grace. And that is kind of where I came with this. And so now that I'm feeling better, even on those speed bump days, I can usually get myself into a pretty good place. It may not be as good as what I'm having today, but it always moves me into a better direction. So little positive thoughts. Baby steps with this is what you have to take, because it's that incredibly slow, and it is a mental endurance test for all of us. You get really strong mentally after you've come off benzos. The small things are not a big sweat anymore. So the other thing that helped me a lot is, I'm a swimmer. I have been swimming all my life. And fortunately, and a lot of people live in a part of the country where I realize that you have a cold winter and don't have access to a lot of pools. But I'm here to tell you, there is one if you look hard enough. I lived in Minneapolis, St. Paul for, in fact, I did a lot of road work there. And I could always find a hotel and go talk to them. I told them I had a neck problem. And I would bundle up. I had no car. I would walk to about 10 blocks, maybe further, to this hotel in St. Paul where they let me use the pool. My hair would be frozen on the way back because it was still wet. But I found a pool, because I need to swim. I have hardware in my neck. I've had a fusion, and I've got, it helps. Swimming helps. It loosens things up. It also helps you with those tight muscles. And even if you can't do much swimming, there were many days that if I could just get myself to the pool and get in the water and float on my back, the water is really healing. I know Epsom salt baths are big. I lived in an Epsom salt bath coming off and with lidoderm patches. So there is little ways to shift your thinking with a lot of this stuff. I've mentioned meditation. If you get into a bad place with these spells, it's good to stop and pay attention to your thoughts, because we all have negative thoughts, but they're worse coming off benzos. I mean, I don't think anybody even realizes what a negative thought really is until you come off benzodiazepines. Because holy cow, I started paying attention when I was going through some pretty bad stuff last summer, and how many negative thoughts I had in a day, and I could not believe. I took stock, and the more I paid attention to it, the more I was able to shift out of all that negativity and stay, I would say, positive and in a positive frame of mind, probably about 80 to 90% of the time. I'm not going to say I do this perfect, because I don't. And I don't know many people who do. So anyway, that is my long spiel for the day. I'm really curious to hear from you women out there about the hormone issues, and I'm hoping this helped you all. As usual, I'm here to support you any way that I can. Still waiting to hear back on the bill here in Arizona. I've not heard back from the congressman I sent it to. Keep you updated on all that. In the meantime, please support our program by getting a membership on our Patreon link below. Little as $1 a month. Everybody can afford $1 a month, especially if you live in the U.S. There's a lot of people who can't even. I know that it's hard, because a lot of you are seriously in bad shape and need help. I was there. So for those of you who can, help support us. We're on a good leg to make a lot of headway in the world, hopefully, as far as benzos and other psychiatric medication. If I have anything to say about it, they're going to have to do something dramatic, let's just say, to stop me. I'm not going to go away quietly with this at all. So, and I suggest none of you do either. Once you're feeling better, that you get involved with this, because it's a big problem for all of us in the way of taxes, tax dollars, and other things that are being lost. If you've read my blogs on our website, I would encourage you, if you haven't, to go there and read them, because I have a lot of thoughts on this stuff, as many of you who have been following me know, and I'm pretty outspoken about my thoughts. So, on that note, I'm going to go eat my salad, because I'm really hungry and I'm really hot. So it's been a pleasure sharing with you as usual, and I'll look forward to talking to you next week. And bye for now.